Hey everyone, how you doing today? As promised in our daily financial news, we have the lovely Laura Morby with us this morning. How you doing?
Doing great.
And it is still Mother's Day, so again, we will say Happy Mother's Day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate that first episode where we talked about helping the next generation of kids and all of that. But this one, we're going to change it up. We're going to talk about side hustles. And specifically, we're going to talk about being a real estate agent as a side hustle. And folks, you have to realize if you haven't seen Laura's first interview or last week, she is in the top 1% of Arizona real estate agents. So she's got it down. And she gave you a lot last week. You need to go check out. She's got her own playlist. But we're going to ask a top 1%er, what does she think about real estate agents being a side hustle or part-time thing, all of that stuff. So what do you think, Laura?
All right. Well, number one, I'm going to speak from experience. I used to be a part timer. so um, let's just go ahead and get off the bat. Start off and just say that I think no. And the reason why I think no, I'll get into. So when I first started, of course, I didn't have the pipeline built, the business built to where I could do real estate alone. And I was part time. And there, I will specifically, at one point I had 3 jobs plus real estate.
Oh
So,
my God.
um, oh my gosh, I can't even begin to tell you how busy I was. But, so I worked at GoDaddy and Nordstrom. And I remember one day I was sitting at Nordstrom. I went to the back, checked my phone, and I had a title company asking me for something that they had been asking for 2 days, a buyer's agent telling me that this was the worst transaction they had ever been a part of. And I remember that feeling. And number one, that's not me. And I felt terrible. And I felt terrible for my client. And I just thought, if the people that are like kind of on your team as professionals that are helping move this towards the finish line, if they're saying these things, what does my client think?
Mm.
And truly at the end of that transaction, I was like, how did that close? Like it really was at that level. It was like I was so uninvolved. I hadn't, and it wasn't because I didn't care, it's because I didn't have the time.
Yeah.
And so shortly after that, I ended up taking a job as a leasing agent for a property management company and quitting Nordstrom and GoDaddy and the others, and ended up, to utilize my license, but to have a steady income.
Mm.
And so then I was able to be, available to get on my computer and send off addendums and check in with the lender and make sure things are going smoothly and being proactive rather than reactive. That's kind of how I try to run my business once, because it's not just about getting a sale done. It's about, there's so much more after the fact and making your client feel comfortable with updates and being available to talk and all of that good stuff. So, and then helping them fill out things or explaining things. Like if you're working all the time, and mainly during business hours, that's the thing that's the hardest part is like, yes, you can be part-time, you can work your 9 to 5 and then nights and weekends you can do real estate. But guess what? Lenders and title companies are only 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And if you're not available at those times, you're in trouble. And so I still run across agents where we're doing a deal together and, they represent the buyer and I'm the listing agent. And I'm like, what is wrong with this person? They do not respond to emails. They
Mm.
clear my calls. And really quickly you figure out, oh, you have a job. And like like you're holding everyone back. You're making everything worse. And the thing is, it's not because they're a bad person. It's not even because they're a bad agent. It's just because they're not available.
Right.
And so I think no. But I could say that please be an investor part-time. So as a realtor, you're held to certain professional standards. And, when someone asks you to be their realtor, they're essentially hiring you.
Mhm.
And if you're only available 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., say Monday through Friday, and you're available Saturdays and Sundays, that's not great. Imagine, that a doctor's office only had those hours.
Mhm.
Imagine that you needed to go buy a pair of shoes and you could only go buy them at those hours. You could make it work, but it's not convenient and it doesn't really help anybody. And people are kind of making, you know, excuses and framing their lives to your situation. But to be an investor,
Mhm.
please do that part time. You know, when sometimes when Pace and I are talking to people and it's like, oh, I quit my job.
Mhm.
I went and got a home equity line of credit
Oh,
and I'm living off of that for a year while I'm building up my business. And it's like, no,
no,
no, no,
no,
no,
no,
keep that
no.
9 to 5. Keep that 9 to 5 until you can, replace part of your income with it and then maybe go down to part time.
Yeah.
He always says to saddle up your next horse before you get off the other one. And that's
Ooh,
very, very, very true.
I like that.
Sometimes when I was in my younger 20s, I'd do something with Pace where I'd be like, "Oh, I'm done. I want to quit." These feelings we all have. And I probably
Yeah.
shouldn't have vocalized, but he was like, "No, no, no. What are you going to wake up and do tomorrow? Saddle up your next horse." And that always felt a little bit, um, especially when you're working for somebody, to be saddling up your next horse. It almost feels wrong.
Yeah.
And in my experience, I've kind of always told somebody, I did this when actually worked for a lender, a mortgage lender. And I told them, I said, hey, I've referred away a lot of business this year for real estate. My true passion is being an agent. I want to get back into it. I'm going to start doing short sales again. So, I'm going to probably, leave in the next 6 months. I'll give you more than enough notice. I'm happy to train your next person. And he let me go that next Monday. And I was
Mm.
really offended. And Pace was like, you showed him all your cards. And I'm like, but I thought we were friends, like I didn't think he would just can me. And so like I got pushed right into my, getting back into real estate again really quick after that. But
Yeah.
I can see where being transparent, even if you feel like you're doing something wrong, where you're like actively looking for your next thing or saddling up your next horse or making sure you're okay before you leave somebody or a job, that can feel wrong, but it's
Well,
it's life.
yeah, they have no loyalty to you. I mean, that's what you got to think back to that exact example. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, thanks for telling me. You're gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
just business, and that's what Pace said. He was like, "It's just business." He probably thinks that you were gonna not be as focused at work, and I'm like, "That's the opposite of me."
Hmm.
Didn't even give me a shot, I would never do that. I would never be doing real estate on his at his time, but,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's true. So, definitely part-time if you're an investor. Yes,
Yeah.
please. If you're a realtor, I'm sorry, but no, please. But what do you think? What are your thoughts on this? Because I know this is pretty polarizing that I'm,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
hard,
Yeah,
but
well, I think you're gonna be pleasantly surprised. So first off, the investor aspect. I hate how social media almost celebrates the person that quits on Friday and is a full-time investor on Saturday.
oh, yeah.
That's just
Yes.
that is talk about not a recipe for success. Yeah, it can work, but the
Yeah.
odds are not great. You can win the lottery also, right? It's just
Yeah.
it's not it's not how I would choose to operate. I wouldn't want to put my family at risk. There's just so many reasons why that's bad. And oh, by the way, I like cheap debt, not expensive debt. And they
Yeah.
like W-2 jobs. So, I mean, there's just all
Yes.
kinds of reasons that, yes, be an investor, build a portfolio. I think real estate investing one rental at a time is the best way to go while you have a full-time job. So, totally agree with
Love
that.
yeah.
Uh,
100%.
when I think about real estate agents, I actually think about it from the investor side. I mean, I get asked so many times, I'm going to be a real estate investor. I want to be like you. Should I get my license?
Mhm.
And the answer for 99% of them is hell no.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
absolutely.
absolutely no. I mean,
Mhm.
most of them, when in the beginning, I would push back. I'd be like, well, what are you getting at? And the answers are always the same. They want to get their license because they feel like they're making progress. Okay.
Okay.
They're
Yeah.
like, well, I can tell myself that I'm taking the class online every Friday at 8 or whatever it is. And I have a test that's out there like 90 days. And they just feel like they're doing the right things. You aren't doing anything. I got
Right.
my real estate license after I retired because I didn't know what to do. And I thought there was this magical data in the MLS. There's
Mhm.
nothing there anymore, folks. Maybe 30 years ago, there's nothing there
Sure.
anymore. I freaking
Yes.
hate paperwork. I will never renew my
Yes.
license. It expires in November. It's gone. I've never
Yeah.
represented anybody. I will never do it. I hate it. Oh,
Yep. Yep.
crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, it is not this magical thing that unlocks stuff. I thought maybe. And again, I didn't have a job. I had to do something. But yeah, I would
Right.
it's it's not if you think getting a real estate license is a step a good step on your way to become a good investor. It's not. You learn
No.
about disclosures and forms and do this and do that, don't do that. And oh, it does nothing to help you be an investor, in my opinion.
100%. And it opens you up to, I mean, this is going to sound bad, but um, there's a gentleman that I used to work for. He was my age, and he's the one that I did short sales with. Um, when I worked for him, he paid a broker because he owned his own brokerage, but he didn't want to be the broker. He paid a broker $250,000 a year. And I remember being like, to review your paperwork? Why? And it was just because he didn't want that liability on himself.
Yep.
And since then, he's actually let his license go. And he comes from a family of realtors. His mom was a very successful realtor. And after that, then Pace went and did a bunch of home flipping for a huge investor here. And they owned a brokerage, but none of them were licensed. They hired a broker, and that really made me think, why do they not want to do that? Well, then you're subject to the Department of Real Estate, all this stuff. You have to have so many disclosures that you hold an active real estate license in the state. And then you have this whole thing too, when you're an investor and you're going to, especially if you're direct to seller, you walk into, there's so many rules for you as a licensed realtor to be offering cash to a seller. You have to actually, there's this whole thing, the level of disclosure. It's almost like you need to walk out of their front door as the realtor and come back in as the investor. You have to be like, hey, as the realtor, now I'm taking off my realtor hat. Now let me put on my investor hat, because you can get in so much trouble for so many things that you're not even thinking about. And then if you say you're just Mr. Investor out there and you don't disclose that you hold a real estate license, now you're in trouble. Or say you do walk in and you say, just so you know, I am a licensed realtor. Well, guess what? Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner might think that you know a little too much and you're going to take advantage of them. And you're not. It's just that perception that, I don't know, there's just so much weird gray area where I think it's actually more beneficial to not have your license. And even Pace is like, I'll never have my license. And I'm like, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know?
No. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Totally agree.
Yeah, but you're right. It's like feeling like you're doing something.
That's what they're going after. They want, again, I see this whole financial freedom or real estate investor journey as a hill, and people want to go on a path. And for whatever reason, they think one of the steps is the license, and they feel like, oh, I can check that box. I can do that. That's, I mean, if that's what no, that's not it. But I mean, and let's just flip the script, right? If your goal is to be a real estate agent, do open houses and help people get on the first, there's lots of wonderful reasons to be a real estate agent. It's just not, it's not, at least for me, it's not one of those things you check on your way to becoming a good real estate investor. It's just not.
100%. Or that's required too, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. There's no, I did it because Laura, I thought there was some information that was hidden from the public.
Oh yeah, some magic thing.
This magic, this super secret word. No, sorry.
Pace sometimes asks me to list a property for his students.
Yeah.
And I think that it's because of this, because there's they think that realtors hold some sort of magic something. And maybe other realtors are going to get mad that I'm saying this, but yeah, you're right. There is nothing magical that I know or can do that you can't, as an investor.
Yeah.
Nothing.
It's pretty funny. Yeah. So in the end, I think being a real estate agent is a wonderful full-time career. I think it's great for in your, like moms raising kids, because the hours are flexible. I think you can make six figures fairly well or easily, depending on your market, right? Price points and all of that. But for me, no, it's not a
100%.
not a thing. So, all right.
100%.
Cool.
I love that.
There you go. All right, Laura, thank you very much for episode number 2.
Thank you.
You're welcome.